lotto in this bitch, living reckless. Yeah, we know your crew can't hang. We in the section, throwing up them hundreds like it's change. Popping bottles in this bitch, 100 models in this bitch. We gon' party like we won the fucking lotto in this bitch, living reckless. Yeah, we know your crew can't hang. We in the section, throwing up them hundreds like it's change. SIMBA, back at it, I'm down in the fifth. I bought the whole shit, making moves, I'm out of the trench. Got out of LA, West Coast where I represent. I never thought that it could happen like the way that it did. I got more problems, lot of money in the bank, we going full throttle. Gotta get it anyway, we just some showstoppers. We gon' pop them if they trippin', throwing money in the club, now what we sippin', yeah. Popping bottles in this bitch, 100 models in this bitch. We gon' party like we won the fucking lotto in this bitch, living reckless. Yeah, we know your crew can't hang. We in the section, throwing up them hundreds like it's change. Popping bottles in this bitch, 100 models in this bitch. We
what
gon'
up,
party
everybody?
like we won the fucking lotto in this bitch, living reckless. Yeah, we know your crew can't
started.
hang. We in the section, throwing up them hundreds like it's change.
I done been on them when I spit, the shit gets hot like a sauna. I'm Jeffrey Dahmer, where I eat it, ain't got time for no drama. I'm packing llamas, hollow points to take them out, I can promise. I'm making commas, used to busting fucking tables, I'm honest. I'm used to trauma, coping with it, lighting up marijuana. Sip up my demons, rolling up on them inside of it.
What up, everybody?
And when I fed up, know them demons gonna be good as a goner. Like dinosaurs in that comic, came down and took out the mama. It's fucking lava with me and Simba, Hakuna.
Go ahead, hit that intermission for y'all real fast, man. What up, everybody? What up, what up, what up? Yeah, you guys have been telling me to look out, for this, 411 series. You guys have been telling me to react to it and stuff like that, so, that's what we'll be doing right now. Everything sound good? Everybody can hear me? All right, let YouTube do its thing real quick, and then we'll jump right into it, man. We'll jump straight into it. I've been loving these. I've been loving doing these, man. I'm addicted to him. He's fucking awesome. He's really awesome. All right, I got my red cup. Let's do it. Going on, man. All right, so this is Mr. Ballin finds Five strangest disappearance in forests, the missing 411 phenomenon. You guys have been telling me to check it out, man. I can't wait to jump up in it. I love his stories, how he tells the stories, everything spooky and stuff like that. So let's do it, man.
Something very strange seems to be going on inside of national parks in North America. Every year, hundreds of people go missing in these parks, but these parks are huge expanses of wilderness. So it's not particularly unusual that people might go missing inside of them. But every year, of those hundreds of people that go missing, there's always a few that go missing under very strange circumstances. Either the way in which they disappeared doesn't really add up. Someone will be watching or keeping an eye on someone, they'll turn around and then turn back and that person's missing and there's not a trace of them and they're never found again.
I swear, if that was to happen to me where I was camping or something with somebody, or even just walking down the street and I was talking to someone and they just disappeared like while I was talking, oh man, I would be freaked out, bro. Like, what? I'd be like, what just happened, brother?
Or you'll have instances of someone will go missing, there'll be an extensive search, there's no trace of them, and then they're found like miles and miles away in locations that are almost impossible to get to. Now, one man, David Politis, who's a former police detective, he began researching these very strange disappearances inside of national parks. It started when a park ranger actually approached him and said, hey, there's a bunch of weird things happening in state parks. You should look into it because you're a former detective. And so after looking into it, he discovered that there were so many oddities around many of these strange disappearances. And he saw there was many overlaps and similarities that he really dove into it. And he's examined thousands of these strange cases. By his count, 10,000 plus hours of research. He's written 4 books. They're all under the name Missing 411. If you Google Missing 411, you'll find a plethora of information.
Oh, so this is all like a
he has
book.
2 documentaries out. And so
Okay.
David, while he doesn't actually take a stance as to, what's causing these strange disappearances, anybody that follows along with the Missing 411 cases is basically led to believe that something is hunting humans in North America inside of national parks. It is fascinating, it is terrifying, and I've picked out 5 of the most bizarre cases that I've come across inside of Missing 411. Before we get into those 5 stories though, if this is the type of content that you're interested in, the strange, dark, and mysterious that I've kind of promised in this video, well, that's what my channel is all about. And I post 3 to 4 times a week. And so if that's your style and you like that type of content, if you could, please gently lambast the like button and then please turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. All right, let's get into the stories. On Father's Day weekend, 1969, 6-year-old Dennis Martin, his brother, his father, and his grandfather headed up to the Smoky Mountains to go camping. This was a family tradition on Father's Day, and they were really excited about it. They get to the same campsite they always used. They set up, they have a wonderful first night, they camp out, and the next day, another camper in the area happened to walk by and saw that Dennis and his brother were playing there. And so this camper had kids as well, and he asked Dennis's father, hey, would it be okay if I brought my kids by? They're the same age as your sons, and they can just play together. Dennis's father says, sure, bring them down. And so the man goes, gets his kids, they come back, and before long, all the kids are playing hide and seek. Now, Dennis's father would say that he had an eye on Dennis the whole time.
He didn't have no eye on
At a
him.
distance, but watching his son to make sure he didn't get lost. And so at one point,
They all
the
say
kids
that.
are hiding from the parents. And, at some point, the parents say, okay, show yourselves. And all the kids, except for Dennis, show themselves. And Dennis's father has watched Dennis go behind a particular tree. He watched him do it. He was watching the whole time. And so when they said, come on out, and he didn't come out, he actually wasn't that concerned because he knew exactly where his son was. And then after a few moments, he yelled to his son directly and starts walking over and says, Dennis, come out, Dennis. I know you're behind the tree. And when he finally got over there, Dennis wasn't there. Dennis's father immediately starts running off into the woods, screaming for his son. And he actually ends up running almost 2 miles up the Appalachian Trail, just hollering for his son, and he can't find him. And then the rest of the family had broken up and was searching the area because they're thinking, like, he couldn't have gone very far. He was literally just here. And Dennis's father had said before, like, I watched him go behind the tree. I watched him. I don't know where he is, but I watched him go behind the tree. And so they're searching everywhere, and Dennis is gone. So a huge search, in fact, the biggest search in park history ensues.
Wow.
1,500 searchers that included the Army Green Berets, so the special forces got involved. They are combing a 60 square mile plot. They're looking everywhere, and there is nothing. There is no trace. There's no scent. There is nothing connected to Dennis Martin anywhere. And so they go back.
Wait, so this kid disappeared in thin air? Like, that doesn't happen. You feel me? That doesn't happen, And I know this, he said that the book kind of says that, we're being hunted in like North America, whatever the case is, so I don't know, maybe, but that doesn't happen where there's no scent, there's no footsteps, no anything. Like, that doesn't happen. I don't know, man. Maybe the aliens is here. I don't know. Maybe we are being hunted like Alien versus Predator.
Back to Dennis's father, and they're like, you have to tell us what you saw. Again, this doesn't add up. If you were looking at the tree and he was right there, how is it that he has just vanished into thin air?
Right.
But no one knew. That was it. No one knows what happened. There's no closure. He's just gone, and they never knew what happened to him. Years later, when David Paulides was doing his research for Missing 411 and was researching the Dennis Martin case, he interviewed other families that had been at the campground at the same time that Dennis had gone missing. And one of those families was the Key family. And they had asked a park ranger where they could go on the campground where they might be able to see some bears. And so the park ranger obviously said, be careful, but you can go over here to this section of the campground and you might see a bear. And so they head over there and they're looking for bears. And one of their children hears a scream, or thinks he hears a scream, and kind of directs the family to look in the direction of the scream. And from their vantage point, they could see up onto the side of this mountain where there was, call it sparse trees all over the mountain, so you could kind of see in between the trees. And they saw what looked like a bear running along the mountainside, but with something slung over its shoulder. Except the interesting thing about this bear was the father was quoted as saying that it didn't really act like a bear. It was acting more like a human the way it was running. It looked
What the hell?
hairy.
Hold on, so they saying Bigfoot done got this man? Oh my goodness. Yo, y'all ran into Bigfoot? That's what you telling me? That sound like Bigfoot. Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster. Yo. Come on, man. I don't know, man. I don't know. That sound like a Yeti. It sound like a Yeti. I don't know, man.
And like an animal, but it was running and dodging between trees. It was holding this, what looked like a child over its shoulder. It acted almost like a human. And so you have a bear man that has been spotted by the Keith family, and they bring this up to the investigators that are looking into the Dennis Martin case. And you know, obviously the Dennis Martin investigators, they don't take this seriously. They think that they're just, you know, saying some ridiculous thing for attention or whatever it is. So, you know, it never really was entered into the case with Dennis Martin. It wasn't until the missing 411 cases that it was ever connected. But there really was a family that claims to have seen a bear man carrying a child about an hour after Dennis Martin had gone missing in the same area where Dennis Martin had gone missing.
That's crazy, bro.
In the spring of 1952, 2-year-old Keith Parkins was playing with his siblings outside of his grandfather's ranch in Ritter, Oregon. And when the kids were all called in to have lunch, Keith was nowhere to be found. And so the siblings and the family went out and did a cursory search looking for Keith. And when nothing turns up, they call in authorities and a full-fledged search is launched for Keith. There's no sign, there's nothing. And 4 miles away from the ranch, they find several hours later some footprints that look like they might belong to a 2-year-old. And they start tracking those footprints, and they go on for miles and miles, and then they just kind of stop. And it wouldn't be until the next day, 12 miles away from the ranch, that they would ultimately find Keith. Surprisingly,
wow.
Keith, who had disappeared with not enough clothing to be out in sub-zero temperatures with snow on the ground and being 2 years old. He wasn't prepared for a night out. He was found alive, face down, 12 miles away. His jacket and his hat had been stacked neatly next to him, and he had scratch marks all over his face.
Whoa!
He was unhurt. When asked, you know, what happened, you know, he's 2 years old, he had said a cat scratched him, and he kept repeating that a cat had scratched him. That was the only thing that he could articulate. No one knew how a 2-year-old, in the span of 20 hours, could have moved in the middle of the night 12 miles away.
That's creepy, bro.
A very accomplished outdoorsman. He's the star. He is Survivor Man. He actually, because of this case, went out and tried to actually cover the distance in the allotted time. You have 20 hours to cover this 12 miles, and he couldn't do it. And he even said, like, it's not possible for a 2-year-old to have covered this distance, let alone survived the exposure to the elements in the time that he was out there. But somehow he did. And, you know, years and years later, Keith was interviewed, because now he's a grown man. He was interviewed about what happened, and he has no idea. He has no memory of it.
Damn, man. That's crazy.
At the end of 1973, 19-year-old Charles McCullar, who was an amateur photographer, had been doing a West Coast tour of the United States, going to all the different national parks to photograph beautiful scenery. And by January of 1974, he was in Oregon and wanted to go to Crater Lake, where he wanted to take pictures of Crater Lake. So he asked his friend, who had an all-terrain vehicle, to take him out to Crater Lake, because his van, which was this VW beat-up old van, it couldn't have made it out that far. And as his friend is driving him out to Crater Lake, Charles says to him, kind of jokingly, yeah, if you don't hear from me in a couple of days, file a missing person report. Sure
now,
enough,
why
a
would
couple
you say
days
some
later,
shit like
when
that?
Charles doesn't show up, that friend does file a missing person report, and an extensive search is conducted at Crater Lake to find Charles. There's no sign of Charles. There's nothing. There's no anything about Charles. And his father actually flew out there and stayed for several months, just constantly searching the area, found nothing. So nothing is found. So a year later, a couple of backpackers were hiking the area around Crater Lake, and they get lost. They take a wrong turn, and they're well off the trailhead, and they discover a backpack. In the backpack, they found a strange-looking Volkswagen key that anyone that knew Charles McCullar knew that he had this strange key. And so when they found it, it was a distinctive key. And so when they gave it to police, it turned out that it was Charles McCullar's backpack. So investigators went out and started looking in the area that this backpack was found, which was 12 miles off the trailhead. So this is well off the trailhead. And near the backpack, they find what remained of Charles McCullar. So they found his pants unbuttoned and on a log, as if he was sitting on the log and then just disappeared into the ground.
What the hell?
Sticking out of the pants were his socks, no shoes, and in the socks were his feet bones. There was no jacket.
What in the hell is eating people? Yo, now that's freaky, bro. That is freaky. My man only had feet bones in his socks, like, and some pants just sitting there? That's crazy, man. Yo.
There was no upper portion of his skeleton. 12 feet away, they find a portion of his skull. And that is the last thing they find of Charles McCullar. And ultimately, it was determined that he died of natural causes. His family was not prepared to accept that. However, when you look at some of the circumstances, we have...
Hold on, they said he died of natural causes? Bro, natural causes don't do that, okay? They don't do that, okay? You at least find the body, like the whole body, not just parts of a body. Like, what are you talking about, bro? Yeah, no, I wouldn't have tucked that either. You got me messed up. You better come back and tell me, goddamn, the devil himself, you know, came up and grabbed my dude. Like, I would have took that other than natural causes. You got me fucked up. What you talking about, bro?
Yeah, he's missing his jacket. He's missing his boots. He's missing his photography equipment. His head is detached from his body. He was also 12 miles off the trailhead. And when he went missing, there had been approximately 5 to 7 feet of snow that had dumped in the area. So how did he move 12 miles off the trailhead in 7 feet of snow, especially when you consider he was not an outdoorsy type. And even when he got dropped off by his friend that drove him out there, he even said later on that he felt like Charles was very ill-equipped for the environment he was going into. But at the end of the day, it was left as, sorry, he went missing and he died of natural causes, and that was that. Bart Schleyer was a famous outdoorsman and hunter. He was just one of those people that you could drop into any environment and he's not only going to survive, he's going to thrive. A testament to that would be he spent months in Siberia tracking and catching Siberian tigers. He was like a world-renowned tiger tracker. He's just like this super rugged, super competent outdoorsman. In September of 2004, Bart books a float plane to take him 175 miles north into the Yukon Territory in Canada for him to go hunt moose on his own for 3 weeks. He had all the right equipment, he was obviously extremely capable, and no one thought twice about it. When he got dropped off, he told the pilot, meet me back here in 3 weeks. And so off he went. The plane leaves and comes back 3 weeks later, and there's no Bart. Now, the pilot knew Bart was like a god in the wilderness, and so he wasn't really concerned, but he went over to where he had been told his campsite would be, and he found the campsite. And it looked like someone was still living there. It didn't look like it had been destroyed at all. And then near his campsite, he found a dry bag, which looked like it had an indent on it, where someone might have been sitting on it up against a tree. And then next to the tree was his bow and some arrows. And it looked like an area where a hunter might have been sitting to call in moose, but there was no Bart. Near the dry bag and the bow and arrow, they found Bart's teeth and a couple of shards of bone. Initially, the thought is, well, a large predator must have snuck up on Bart and eaten him. Except there's a couple of huge problems with that theory. One, Bart, his friends at least would say, and people that knew him would say, he would never get snuck up on by a large predator. He was so accomplished in the wilderness. Like, he was always a step ahead of everything around him. So the idea that he would just be sitting there one day and a bear would just happen to sneak up on him is pretty far-fetched. Also, in the area where his teeth and some of his bones were found, there was no sign of what they call a death struggle, where you're fighting for your life, you're smashing into everything. There's none of that. There's no marking on the ground or in the surrounding areas that a large predator had attacked him. Also, his camp had food out in the open, and if a large predator had come through, like a bear, after it finished with Bart, it would have raided the campsite, and it didn't. And so the way this was left was he was attacked and eaten by a predator. But nobody believes that, because that wouldn't happen to Bart, and the circumstances around his campsite didn't really add up.
That's wild, man.
In 2002, Christopher Tompkins was working as a surveyor, and he was assigned to this 4-man survey crew that was working in Harris County, Georgia. And they were walking along this road spaced about 50 feet apart, all 4 of them. And Chris was the last one in line. And the third one in line would later tell investigators and police that as they were walking along the road, he would periodically turn around to just, for a quick second, make sure Chris was still there. And as they're walking along with no sound or any indication that anything's happened, he turned around, saw Chris, kept walking. A few minutes later, turned around, and Chris is gone.
That's crazy.
The third guy hails the other 2, and they go, and they're like, where did Chris go? They're looking down the road, like maybe he stopped, maybe he stepped off the trail, but they can't see him. And they go back they start walking down the road towards where he would have been, and they find on the ground a pile of loose change and some of his tools that would have been in his pockets. And then they see one of his boots stuck in the barbed wire, because there's a little barbed wire fence.
What the hell?
This road, one of his boots.
Bro, that's wild. People really out here just disappearing into the air, bro. People just out here vanishing like they Chris Angel. That's creepy, bro. I can't imagine being with my boys, with the homies. We about to go, do whatever we about to do. And then you just look back, or you look to the side, and your boy is just gone. Just gone. Like, shoes on the floor, gum, his wallet, some more crazy stuff. He just gone. No, he's just gone. Someone explain that. That's freaky, man. That's freaky.
Boots was stuck in the barbed wire, and there was nothing else. They searched the area, they're looking everywhere, there's no sign of him, and it didn't make any sense to the people in this survey crew, especially the guy who was third in line, who was like, I literally saw him a minute ago, and there's no way he could have gotten away without me hearing or seeing some indication.
That's true. Yeah, you would have heard him.
There was no sign of him, and he was gone.
That's crazy,
so after this
bro.
huge investigation,
That's
they
crazy.
didn't find any sign of him, and that's it. They're just like, yeah, he's gone. They did find, 9 months later, they found his other boot near a swamp 900 yards away, but it didn't provide any more clarity into what happened to him. However, if you look at the pile of loose change and things that were in his pockets that were on the road, it indicates that at some point he may have been turned upside down. And if you think about the entirety
That's true.
of all of these strange stories, where the idea being someone could be hunting humans, just picture in your head Chris Tompkins walking along and something flipping him upside down, dumping the contents out, and then being gone in a matter of a minute where no one can see where they went. These 5 stories are just a fraction of the literal thousands of others that are covered in the Missing 411 series. And while many people believe that all of the cases in Missing 411 and any others that ultimately are considered strange inside of these national parks have a rational explanation, even if we don't know what it is. Whereas
Shit, I don't believe that.
Believes that this Missing 411 phenomenon is an indication that something is hunting humans in
maybe
the national parks across North America.
Yeah, I'm not going to
Bigfoot,
no national
aliens,
parks.
Some say something else. But paranormal is certainly the other camp in terms of trying to explain away what these strange disappearances are from, or what's
That's
causing
wild.
them. Whether or not we ever find a definitive conclusion remains to be seen, but I would love to hear what you think is going on inside
That's wild, man. So we got Bigfoot, we got aliens, and we got demons. That's crazy, bro. I can't deal. I ain't going to no national parks. Like, I'm not doing it, bro. You will not catch me at no national parks. No, I wanted to go to Yellowstone. Now I don't, because I don't know, Bigfoot out there snatching niggas up. I don't know. Yo, man, that was intense, bro. That was intense. I didn't like that. That was intense. Oh, man. Let's see here.
Every year,
Go back for a second. All right, man. Shout out to everybody that donated. Eve, blessings from Scotland. Hey, blessings. Thank you for the donation. Love the content, fam. Much love. Thank you. I'm happy you guys are enjoying these lists, man. These creepy lists. You know, they're super interesting. You know, they really make you think, and they give you the chills, the goosebumps, and I like them, man. I've been truly enjoying them, and I've been liking watching it with you guys and experiencing this with you guys as well, man. This is 5 Strangest Disappearances in the Forest, Part 2. Let's jump up in it.
Every year, hundreds of people go missing inside of national parks all over North America. But of those hundreds of people every year, a few of them go missing under very strange circumstances. And a man named David Phillippis, who's a former police detective, has made it his mission to look into just the bizarre disappearances that are occurring all over North America in his series that's called Missing 411. So there are thousands of these strange cases inside of Missing 411 that David Phillippis has poured tens of thousands of hours of research into. And he puts them into books, into documentaries, and so there's really no shortage of strange cases to look at. But as I begin my own research into Missing 411 and learn about these different cases, I have been pulling groups of stories that stand out to me as being particularly interesting or just fascinating or just strange, and I'm making videos to highlight those stories. And so I've already done one video like this where I highlighted 5 stories that I thought were particularly strange. You can find that in the description. I left a link to that video if you want to check that out. And so today I'm going to be looking at another 5 cases from the Missing 411 project that are just totally weird. But before we get into today's stories, if you're interested in the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, you've come to the right channel, because I post 3 to 4 times a week all about the strange, dark, and mysterious, like I'm promising to deliver today. And if that's your deal, I would ask you to please gently uppercut the like button, and then also subscribe to my channel and turn on all post notifications so you don't miss any of those 3 to 4 weekly uploads. All right, let's get into the story.
Spooky.
So this first one really takes the cake for just being strange. You have a family that basically has 2 experiences that are somewhat connected. You're gonna have to be the judge if they're connected or not, but very strange. On October 1st of 2010, this family, who decided to remain anonymous for the Missing 411 story, they go camping, and it's a 3.5-year-old boy, his older sister, and then the mom and the dad. And so they go camping at Mount Shasta in California, which is a popular camping site. And the family loved to go camping there. And so they're all sitting around the campfire, kind of hanging out at the campsite. It's getting late in the evening, maybe 5, 6 o'clock. And the sister would say that she was looking at her brother, turned away for a second, and then looked back, and he was gone. And it was so sudden that she actually looked for him and couldn't.
This make me not want to look at anybody ever again, bro. I'm not taking my eyes off of people. I'm not doing it. There ain't no way that we can be looking at something and turn away for the blink of a second, right? Just a split little second, and they're gone. I'm not doing it. No blinking. No visiting national parks. You feel me? No hiking alone. Matter of fact, no being alone in general. Like, I don't know, man. This is giving me a whole new world of thoughts. I can't do this.
Find him. So she went and told her mom and her dad, and they start calling for their son, and they're looking all over their campsite, and he's gone. Authorities show up, and they launch a full search. And for 5 hours, they have hundreds of people scouring this area, not only the campsite, but the surrounding areas, and there's no trace of this boy. 5 hours later, they find him laying in a thicket on a trail that had been searched multiple times. And it wasn't like hidden. The thicket was like right by the side of the trail. So if you've searched this trail, you've found this kid. So meaning he couldn't have been there during the search. He must have arrived and then they found him on this trail. Everybody was so happy that they found this kid and he wasn't physically harmed that no one really looked into the fact that it doesn't make any sense that he is here. How did he get here? Where did he go? Where has he been?
Sure.
No one thought about that. They were like, we got the kid back. We're all happy. The parents are happy. Everyone's ready to just move on. And so the kid goes to the hospital. The doctor looks at the kid and says, you know what? He's fine. This is obviously a traumatic situation, but he's fine. You can take him home. And so the kid goes home with his parents, and pretty quickly the family went back to normal. They were obviously super grateful that they didn't lose their son. About 3 weeks after this whole ordeal, the boy is with his grandmother, who he called Cappy, and he looks at Cappy and he goes, I don't like the other Cappy. And so his grandmother, the real Cappy, she looks at him and she was like, what do you mean? Now, remember, this is a 3.5-year-old boy. Language skills, not the best, okay? But this story that he tells his grandmother, he had previously told his father, but the father had written it off as the ramblings of a 3.5-year-old.
Of course.
It wasn't until the grandmother told the father about the story that he was like, I've heard that story. And so the boy says, you know, while he was camping, he turned and he saw Cappy.
Ah, hell no.
To him, to come with him.
Ah, hell
He
no.
loves Cappy. And
Hell no. So this little niglet seen a ghost of his grandma or demon or whatever waving at him to come on. And he said, well, la 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 la, I'ma go over here. Ah, hell no, bro. Yo, that honestly, yo. Honestly, bro, that happened low-key at the ranch where, like, when I went to Ghost Ranch, I was, like, chilling outside or whatever, and I heard something call my voice from, like, he has, like, a pond or something in the back, and that just reminded me of that. I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. I don't like that one bit, bro. That's not cool. Nah. Hell no.
he goes with Cappy, and Cappy leads him up a hill to a cave. Now, the whole time, the real Cappy, who wasn't there, she was not with them camping. She's thinking, oh my God, someone who looks like me abducted this child. So she's listening, horrified. He said, you know, she brought me up to a cave. And when we got into the cave, he said there were spiders and purses, like women's purses. And he turned to look at Cappy, and he said that her head was glowing. And it was when he realized this is not Cappy. This is the other Cappy. And he said the other Cappy kept asking him questions, but he didn't know the answers. And so the other Cappy got frustrated and told him to leave and pushed him out of the cave.
My man was talking to a whole ass demon, bro. He was talking to a big ass demon. That's what he was talking to. Big demon girl. Big demon grandma. What in the world?
And he said that he left the cave and wound up in the thicket. And that's when he was found. And so when Cappy goes and tells the father, and the father says, I've heard that story, they're like, that's so weird. Do you think there's any truth to this? Is there someone that looked like me, Cappy, that took the boy away? And so as Cappy and the boy's father are talking, Cappy feels compelled to share her own strange story about being on Mount Shasta. Because prior to this, the family, I think the way they were looking at what happened is the boy wandered off and he returned 5 hours later. But with the boy's story being kind of corroborated by, you know, the father who heard the same story, Cappy's like, I gotta share my story now because I don't know if it's connected, but I had a very strange experience on Mount Shasta as well a year ago. You know, she went camping a year earlier with her friend. And they go to a campsite on Mount Shasta, the same place where the boy disappeared, and apparently saw the other Cappy. And so Cappy says that that night, they're sitting around the campfire and it's dark, and she notices a set of eyes in the woods that were glowing. So glowing red eyes, she says. And, you know, Cappy and her friend, they go camping all the time. And so they know there could be predators and animals all over the place. And so they grab their flashlights and they shine in the direction of the eyes, and they kind of, the eyes dart away and they don't think anything of it. Over the course of the night, the eyes would keep showing up all around them. And every time they'd shine a light in their direction, they would vanish.
See, this is why I don't go camping or anything like that, because I see some shit like that. Like I say, man, play Russian roulette with your life if you want to, because I'm shooting first and asking questions never, bro. You got me messed up. I'm letting off shots into the forest. I'm letting off so many shots, bro. Like, it's not even gonna be funny. Be out there if you want to. Catch these bullets, fight for your life, fight these lead, okay? I'm trying to tell you, gonna fight these hollow tips. Oh, my mama, bro.
Cappy and her friend are unable to get the light on this thing. So they don't know what it is. And so they're very uneasy about it. But they decide, you know what? We're psyching ourselves out. It's just an animal that's interested in us. And so they go to bed and they sleep in their own. She slept in a tent and he slept in a camper. And they go to bed, and the next morning, Cappy wakes up, and she's laying on the dirt outside of her tent. And immediately, she has pain in the back of her neck. And so she reaches back, and she grabs her neck, and she can feel there's a cut on the back of her neck. She doesn't know what it is, and she looks up, and her friend is on the ground outside of his camper, face down as well. And so she gets up, she feels horrible, like sick, like violently sick, in fact. And she kind of staggers away over to her friend, who is laying there, and she can see too that he's got a mark on his neck, and he gets up and he's like, what happened? And they assumed that they had been bitten by, you know, a poisonous spider. That's actually what they believed, because it was a little puncture wound on both of their necks, and that it had caused them to be sick and delirious. They'd wandered out of their camper and their tent, and they'd wound up on the ground. But now, as Cappy is retelling the story, she was like, I don't know how to connect that experience with what happened to the boy, but I can't help but feel like something weird's happening on Mount Shasta. And it would turn out that, you know, maybe they weren't wrong, because Mount Shasta is like a hotspot for missing 411 strange disappearances. And in fact, our next story is another Mount Shasta case. In 1999, Carl Landers was...
All that tells me is I'm not going to Mount Shasta ever. Don't invite me to that place ever. That sound not fun whatsoever. People missing like that. People going to sleep in their tent, going to sleep in their campers and waking up on the floor in the dirt face down. Also, how do you sleep when something is scouting you? When something is obviously waiting for you to fuck up? How do you sleep, bro? How do you go to sleep? Because me, I can barely go to sleep, even if my mind is playing tricks on me, telling me that something is looking at me. Like, so how do you go to sleep if something is scouting you in the woods, bro? I don't understand it. That's wild to me. That is wild to me.
Was a very experienced hiker, climber, whose passion in life was, on the weekends or any chance he got, was to go hiking and climbing and camping. That was just what he did. He was in great shape. He was enjoying retirement. That was his happy place, is being on a mountain somewhere in California, hiking around. And he had two very close friends that he would go hiking with just about every chance he could. In 1999, in the summer, Carl decides he wants to summit Mount Shasta. And it's something he had attempted to do before, and he had been unsuccessful, and this time he was going to do it. And so Mount Shasta, it's high enough, it's about 14,000 feet, that it's not uncommon for people to stop at this point called Lake Helen, where, you know, hikers can adjust to the altitude, because it's certainly possible to get sick from being at altitude if you don't adjust to it, or if your body doesn't respond well to it. And so their plan was get to Lake Helen, camp out for the night, and then summit the next day. So they head up in May of 1999, the three of them. They get to Lake Helen and they set up their camp for the night. It was clear that Carl already had some sort of altitude sickness, because by the time they reach Lake Helen, he's weak, he's sick, and he figures, I'm gonna try to sleep it off tonight. I'll see how I feel in the morning. And so all night, Carl is just super sick. It's a horrible night for him. And so early the next morning, Carl, he's a real stubborn guy and he really wanted to climb Mount Shasta. He says to his two friends, hey, look, I'm just gonna get a head start here. I've been up basically all night. I'm gonna just get up the last stretch here, summit this mountain, and then come back down.
Why do people do that?
Be done with it. And so his two friends, they didn't like the idea of splitting up, but Carl's an experienced guy. And I mean, he's only covering a distance of maybe 650 feet. Like, this is not some epic distance he's covering. It's basically like a day hike. So Carl leaves on his own. He leaves his backpack at the campsite, and his two friends would watch him as he kind of bent around the mountain and went up towards the summit, and that would be the last time they ever saw him. The two friends would attempt to summit as well about 30 minutes later. One of them apparently had gotten sick overnight and said, look, I can't do this, and he stays at the camp. He's like, I'll be here. You know, we've already split up from Carl. Why don't you also go on your own, summit yourself, and I'll be here. I'll wait for Carl. I'll wait for you. The friend that does make the summit, he goes up. He follows the same trail, this short distance up to the summit, gets to the summit, and he hasn't seen Carl. He's not shocked. It is a little strange that they wouldn't have passed on the way, but he's thinking, you know, anything could have happened. Maybe he sat down somewhere. I don't know what it is. And then comes back down expecting to see Carl back at the campsite. So he gets back to the campsite at Lake Helen, where the other sick friend had not left. He was still there. And he says, hey, has Carl come back? And the friend's like, no, didn't you see him on the way up? Did you lap him? Like, what's he doing up there? And he's like, no, I went up. I didn't see him on the way up. I didn't see him at the summit, and I didn't see him on the way down. And they're thinking to themselves, like, thinking about the trail itself. It's incredibly open. There's almost nowhere to like fall. There's no crevasse. There's no sheer cliff. You know, there's almost no vegetation really to obscure you. It just didn't make any sense that you could vanish. A huge search is launched. They never found anything. There was also 50 to 100 people in the area that day, and nobody knew where he went. No one saw him. No one had any idea what happened to him. They interviewed everybody there. No one knows what happened to Carl. The only clue that we have of Carl is the backpack that he left at Lake Helen before he made the summit run. Other than that, for 20 years, we have no clue what happened to him.
20 years?
So this next story is really creepy. One of the strange phenomenons that you get inside of these missing 411 stories is you have people that go missing really suddenly, like as if they were pulled away at high speed and just ripped off the face of the mountain. And this story is one of those stories. In 2010, Eric Lewis was 57 years old. He was an extremely experienced mountain climber, and he had two very close friends that were also very experienced mountain climbers. And they decided that they wanted to go hike Mount Rainier in Washington State, which is a huge mountain. And they were doing a climb that was fairly technical and fairly dangerous, and it required the three of them to be tethered together on the same cable. And so as they're making this ascent of Mount Rainier, you have friend one in the front, friend two in the middle, and then Eric Lewis is the third guy on the line all the way down. And so the way it worked is the first climber, friend number one, if he wanted to rest, the other two climbers would keep climbing up to his position and take a rest with him. So he was kind of in charge of setting the cadence of how quickly they were going to climb this mountain. And so over the course of the day, the first climber would stop periodically, and then the second climber and Eric would make their way up and wait and relax. All day that was happening. And then one time they come to a stop, and there's been nothing weird happening. Nothing's happened to this point. Everything feels very normal. The first guy stops, the second climber gets up to him, and then Eric doesn't show up. And so they pull on the line, and it's very light. And they pull it up, and the rope has been cut. Like, Eric's gone. And they're like, okay, only in an emergency would you cut the line. And
wouldn't they feel that though? Like, wouldn't you feel like the line being cut? You know, because like, at least in my mind, I think you would feel that. That's crazy. Oh no, man, this shit creepy, bro.
And so they just start immediately descending because they're like, well, it just snowed. It'll be very easy to track his footsteps. If he cut the line, he must have had a reason. Let's follow his footsteps to wherever he went. But the only footsteps on the mountain were the ones walking up, attached to the rope.
Whoa.
Basically, Eric had been walking up, leaving footprints right behind the other two, and then the footprints just stop. There aren't footprints that go back down. It was like he was pulled off of the mountain. And so they start walking down, thinking
what
they're
type
gonna
of
run into him.
Area
They don't.
51
The weather
shit?
gets bad enough that they ultimately abandon the hike. They go down, and they're like, geez. They tell the authorities, and they're looking everywhere, and they can't find him. And then they discover this creepy cave that's like 200 feet down and away from where they were hiking. That would have been very hard to get to. Inside of this ice cave is Eric's gear, but no Eric. And they've never found Eric's body. But for that gear to get into the cave, it wasn't just, hanging on the edge. It was inside the cave. But there was no footprints leading to the cave. There's no footprints anywhere. It was just like inexplicably, Eric's gear winds up deep inside an ice cave 200 feet away, and Eric's body was never recovered, and no one has any idea what happened to him. So the last story is actually really two distinct stories, but they together make up a particular phenomenon that occurs inside some of these missing 411 cases, and that's when some creature takes a child and actually protects them. In 1868, a 3-year-old girl vanished abruptly from her father's camp in northern Michigan. The father noticed the girl was gone, in hysterics. He enlists the help of a couple professional hunters that were there with him. They go off looking for this girl, and after a couple of hours of looking, they start to hear what sounds like her voice. And she doesn't sound particularly distraught, but it's definitely a child's voice. And so they kind of cut through this big thicket, and out bursts this massive bear-looking thing that runs away from them. And they didn't shoot it or anything. They just saw this huge animal run away, and they're thinking the worst because they're hearing this child, and now they're seeing this huge animal that looks like a bear running away. And they go through the thicket, and they find this girl who's totally unharmed, who was in this kind of clearing within the thicket where clearly this bear creature had been with her. And the father's elated. He scoops up the child, and the child seems unhurt, and he asks her, like, where have you been? What happened? And she says, oh, Mr. Wolf took me here, and Mr. Wolf was feeding me berries, and Mr. Wolf was playing with me. Maybe it was.
What type of Twilight shit, Mr. Wolf? She got abducted by a wolf. A wolf came through and just was like, yo, come with me, I got berries. What type of Disney Channel story?
Was a bear or a wolf or something, but some animal had taken her, brought her into a thicket, and had not harmed her. And so the other instance occurred in 1955 when a family that was made up of mother, father, and their 8 kids were staying in this camp in Montana. And they had all these different tents set up for all their kids. And some of the older kids were staying in one of the tents with their 2-year-old sister, Ida Mae, while the parents were working and the kids were doing whatever they were doing. And so these older kids are sitting deep inside the tent, and near the entrance to the tent is where Ida Mae, the 2-year-old, is sitting. And the tent is open, like the flap is open to the tent. And as they're sitting there, the older kids would later say that a bear wandered past, reached in, grabbed Ida Mae, and scooped her up into its arm. And the bear does not do this with its arm, but they described it like this. The bear was holding Ida like this and ran away on 3 legs instead of 4. And so the kids are freaked out because they just saw a bear take their 2-year-old away. They're basically hysterical.
What?
They sprint up to their mom and dad. They tell them what happened. And the parents just have no idea how to react to this. They obviously get in touch with authorities. They launch the search. And as they're doing the search, police are asking the kids, like, describe to us again what you saw. And they're like, it was a bear that was like holding our sister like this. And they were like, you got to be more descriptive because bears can't do that. Was it a person? Was it a hairy person? And the police just didn't buy that it was a bear. And so 2 days go by and they haven't found this child. And so the family obviously is thinking the worst. They're absolutely grief-stricken. And then one of the searchers finds the girl. And they find her about 300 yards away from the camp. She was inside of a very intentionally built structure. It was like a crudely built fort. Right against the riverbed. And inside it was like a den, and she was in there and she was totally unharmed and she was perfectly fine. And they take her out and they ask her, like, what happened? And she's 2, but she says, Mr. Bear fed me berries. Mr. Bear kept me here. Mr. Bear cuddled me. That's all we have. We don't know what this creature was, what bear is able to pull its arm in like this, but she felt totally unthreatened by it, and to this day, we don't really know if that was a bear or something else, but whatever it was, it didn't harm Ida, and Ida never felt threatened by it. These stories are
Goddamn
just a
werewolves.
fraction of the literal thousands of strange cases that David Paulides covers in his Missing 411 project. So if you enjoyed this video and you might want to see more content just like this, I would encourage you to gently uppercut the like button and
Yo, man. Mr. Bear and Mr. Wolf be chirping, okay? Goddamn, Bigfoot out here just stealing kids and feeding them berries. Like, what in the world, man? For real, that's crazy, bro. That's crazy. All right. Read some of these comments real quick, man. Hey, Samantha, thank you for the donation. So glad to see you again tonight. Yeah, man. You know, I told you guys we gonna be going live a lot more. We gonna be doing these lives, man. You know, I've been really enjoying this spooky content. You know, and just chilling with you guys, man. I miss chilling with you guys, talking with you guys, and just vibing out, man, on the live. You feel me? So I want to do it way more. And so that's what we gonna do, man. That's what we gonna do. We gonna create a little time, a list for it. You feel me? That's what we gonna do.
and subscribe to my channel.
All right. All right. All right. All right. We got part 3. Hey, shout out to you, David. Thank you, man. Thank you. I'm happy that you love the videos, brother. Riley, what's up? Hey, much love. I'm happy you're enjoying the videos. Chris says it happens rarely, but animals have helped kids. Yeah, I seen a lot of animals protect kids in ways, but I mean that's kind of weird though. Like you gotta admit that's kind of weird of a bear coming out and just scooping a kid up and just rock-a-bye baby the kid into the forest. Like that's, you know, I don't know about that one. I heard a lot of stuff, but that one's kind of yeah, we'll probably get to all the parts. Not right now, obviously, but I'll probably do all of them. I think there's like 42 or something like that, you know. But yeah, we'll try to get all of them. Chuck, hey, welcome. All right, this is 3 people found in impossible places, missing 411 part 3. Let's get it.
It is an unfortunate reality of being human and living on planet Earth that sometimes people go missing without any clue as to what happened to them. One day they're here, the next day they're gone. There's no clear indication of what happened. And despite everybody else's best efforts, nothing is ever learned about what happened to them. And so their families and their friends, they're left with this void in their lives that I can only imagine how terrible that is. There's no closure. There's like that perpetual sense that if you could just find more information out, you could find out what happened to your loved one, to your friend, to your colleague. But many times, people never get that. These people just go missing and that's it. But in some cases where people suddenly go missing, they'll turn up again. Sometimes days, weeks, months, years later.
That's crazy.
In totally different locations from where they went missing. But sometimes, in very rare circumstances, these people that go missing will reemerge days, weeks, months, years later, not having any idea how they got there or what happened to them. And so today I'm going to share 3 of these reappearance stories. The first 2 are the most well-known. They're very famous. And the third one is not as well-known, but equally as intriguing. But before we get into today's 3 stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you come to the right place, because that is all I do, and I upload 3 to 4 times a week, if not more. So if that's something you'd be interested in, I would encourage you to please gently perform a lobotomy on the like button, and then subscribe to my channel, turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of my 3 to 4 weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into the stories. In 1978, a 23-year-old named Stephen Kubaki was attending a college called Hope University in Michigan. It was a small Christian school where he was studying German and history. Stephen was a little more free-spirited than the typical student enrolled at Hope University, which was very conservative. He was a big-time outdoor enthusiast, and he loved to go skiing. In February of 1978, which was just months before Stephen was set to graduate, he decided he wanted to go on a solo ski trip around the Lake Michigan area. And so this area was known as the Lake Michigan.
Once again, man, all this solo camping, hiking, skiing stuff is never a good idea. Don't go out there in the wilderness, in the world alone like that. That's not cool. Don't do it, man. Don't do it.
Which was very conservative. He was a big-time outdoor enthusiast, and he loved to go skiing. In February of 1978, which was just months before Stephen was set to graduate, he decided he wanted to go on a solo ski trip around the Lake Michigan area. And so this area was known as the Lake Michigan Triangle. It's also known as just the Michigan Triangle, and it's an awful lot like the Bermuda Triangle, which is
hell
the
no.
northern section of the Atlantic Ocean where planes and boats have gone missing over the years kind of inexplicably. Well, the Michigan Triangle is like that. And starting in the late 1800s, there were all these disappearances that started occurring in the Michigan Triangle area. And so Stephen was going to be skiing around the Lake Michigan area, and so he would be in the Michigan Triangle. Now, he had told his friends and his family that he was just going out for a day trip, and Stephen was a very accomplished outdoorsman, excellent cross-country skier, so really no one bats an eye when he decides to go out and, go skiing. No one even thought twice about it. They're like, all right, cool, we'll see you tomorrow. A day after Stephen had left for this ski trip, some snowmobilers were out in the Michigan Triangle area, and they spotted a trail of ski tracks that led up to the edge of the lake, where at the edge of the lake were a set of skis and 2 ski poles. Just stopped abruptly, and they see that this looks like someone might have fallen into the lake. Now, there weren't any clear breaks in the lake itself, but they figured it was worth telling police and to at least let them know in case they're looking for someone who might have gone missing in the area. And so it was around this time that Stephen Kubaki's friends and family started to recognize that he wasn't back yet, and he should have been. And so they end up calling in an official missing persons report because he should have been back. And so the two things happened in tandem. You have the snowmobilers that have found the ski poles and the skis, and you have the missing persons report that's come out for Stephen Kubaki, and immediately they're connected, and this massive search effort is launched with a focus on where those skis and the poles were found. Now, they looked everywhere, but it was like his tracks went right up to the edge of the lake and then just stopped. There weren't any more tracks on the lake. There were no breaks in the lake. There was nothing there. It was like he just suddenly either went into the ground or just vanished somehow. And so as hundreds of people have descended on this area to look for Steve Kubaki, his backpack shows up right next to his skis and ski poles. That was the first place that everybody went, and his backpack wasn't there. And they didn't even know how to investigate it. It was just this weird phenomenon where all these people are like, I guess it just must have been there the whole time. They just didn't have a good answer for it. And so after a long and very elaborate search, ultimately they had to call it off. And so they told the family and friends that what must have happened is he got out of his skis and put everything down, went onto the lake, and it cracked and he fell in. And so that's what everybody believed. I mean, why wouldn't they? 15 months go by, and Stephen's father hears a knocking on the door. And who's at the door? Stephen Kubaki. And when he sees his son, he can't believe it because he believed his son was dead. But Kubaki has no idea, Steve has no idea how much time has passed. He saw a newspaper. Stephen saw a newspaper in his father's house, and it showed that it had been 15 months since he disappeared. He asked his father, like, how can this be? And he told Stephen, you were near Lake Michigan. That's 700 miles away. How did you get here? And Stephen's like, I woke up in a field about 40 miles from here, and I went to, my aunt's house, your sister's house, and she brought me here. And no one had any idea how he got there or why he was in the field in Pittsfield to begin with. In addition, Stephen had on clothes that he didn't recognize. He had a new backpack that had maps and all sorts of kind of like trinkets from different parts of the country. He had been to...
Hell nah, bro. What? My man woke up in a field with some new clothes on? Yo, these aliens are freaky, dog. That's some freaky deaky stuff right there, you asking me. You know, that means they had to change them, get them all naked and shit, give them new clothes. That's wild, bro. There's something out here really hunting humans, you know? And no conspiracy theory stuff like that, but like, y'all be careful, man. I don't know. Like I said, first it was Bigfoot, Casper, like Alien versus Predator. Like, well, I don't know what's happening, bro, but they trying to get us. Stop going to these parks and triangles and stuff by yourself, man. Stop it.
Apparently San Francisco, Sacramento, all over California, to Chicago, to Utah. He's been all over the country, according to the things that are in his backpack. He had $40 in cash, he had new sneakers, new glasses, and he had a t-shirt on from a Wisconsin marathon. It says he was a participant in. And one of the only things that Steven would say to the media, because he basically swore off the media and he didn't want to give his story to anybody, he just said to one of the news outlets that he felt like he had been doing a lot of running. But other than that, we don't know what he was doing for 15 months, and apparently he doesn't either.
That's wild, bro. That is wild.
In early 2018, Danny Phillippis was a 49-year-old firefighter living in Canada. He had a wife, he had 2 kids, he was happy, healthy, successful, and every year, he and his colleagues at the firehouse would go on a ski trip to New York, where they would go skiing at a mountain called Whiteface. And so on February 7th, 2018, Danny and his 7 colleagues are at Whiteface. They're enjoying themselves. Danny was an avid skier. Like, this is something he really looked forward to, was this annual retreat to Whiteface Mountain. And it was getting to be lunchtime, and his 7 colleagues said, hey, let's go down to the lodge and get a bite to eat. Danny was just having a great time on the mountain, and he was like, you know, I'm gonna just do a couple more runs. I'll meet you guys in about 30 minutes or so. I'm gonna do a couple more runs before lunch. So they go down to the lodge, and Danny continues to do a couple more runs. And so after an hour or so, and Danny still hasn't shown up at the lodge, his 7 colleagues have finished eating, and they're like, you know what? I bet Danny just decided he wanted to skip lunch, and he's probably just fine. And so they end up just going out and skiing the rest of the day. But by the end of the night, when the mountain is starting to shut down, they're all checking their phones for messages from Danny. They haven't gotten anything from him. They haven't seen him. They decide, let's go check out, you know, his room back at the hotel and make sure that he's there. Maybe he got sick and he left, something like that. And the resort was attached to the mountain itself. So they just walked right over to his room. They knocked, he didn't answer, but then they went out back and they found his car, and his car was still there. They went to the front desk, they explained the situation. They ended up going in the room and checking to see if he was in there. He wasn't, but all of his personal belongings are still inside of the room. So Danny, who has not shown up after going skiing for this additional run, clearly hasn't left the mountain because his car's still here, his cash, his passport, everything is in his room, but no one knows where Danny is. And so they launched this massive search for Danny. And I mean, this day it was so crowded at Whiteface. There's so many people there. And also it had snowed a ton before they even started skiing that day. So it would have been very difficult to move very far off the mountain, let's say, if someone wanted to. I mean, just there was too much snow on the ground. So he couldn't have gotten very far. And there were lots of people there that they could interview to say, have you seen this man? They had a picture of him, you know, and no one had seen him. And there was no sign of him. Despite this massive search effort, no one has any idea what happened to him. The authorities call off the search and they tell his loved ones and his friends that, you know, Danny must have succumbed to the elements. That's the only explanation we can give. We can't find him now because the snow's pretty deep, but hopefully when the weather warms up, we'll be able to launch another search and we can recover his body.
Wow.
And so that's the news that's passed to his wife, to his kids, to his friends, and it's just devastating. And then a couple days later, Danny's wife is home, trying to adjust to this awful new normal, and she gets a phone call from a number she doesn't recognize. And she picks it up, and it's a little bit hard to hear, but she immediately recognizes her husband's voice. And she can tell right away that there's something wrong. Like he's not making sense. She's like, Danny, is that you? Is that you? And Danny's like, I don't know where I am. I don't know how I got here. Where are you? What am I doing? And so she immediately tells him, you have to call the police. You have to call the police. They have to come get you. And finally he agrees and he hangs up. The police receive a phone call from Danny, and he doesn't know where he is. He's saying that, you know, my wife told me to call you. I'm very confused. I don't know what's going on. And they ask him to describe where he is, and he starts describing what's around him, and police are able to, you know, eventually pinpoint where he is. And it turns out he was near Sacramento, California, 2,900 miles away from Whiteface Mountain. Even more strange.
What? He was in Sac? Man's went from New York to Sac? In what, 2 days? Yeah, that's some freaky stuff. Nah, no one can't tell me that they ain't aliens out here just plucking us and just putting us in different places. That confirms it for me. There's no way that man got that far in that limited amount of time. People, they just picking us up and just placing us somewhere else. That's crazy, bro.
Strangely, when the police go to collect Danny, he's still wearing his ski gear. You know, winter jacket, winter pants, ski boots on. He even still had his goggles on his head. And he has a haircut. He has a fresh haircut. And he has a brand new phone, a brand new iPhone.
What?
But he had no money. He had no wallet. He had nothing. He had left all of his belongings in his room. So looking at him like, how did you get a new phone? How did you get a haircut? Why did you get a new haircut? And when you got your haircut, why didn't the person cutting your hair let someone know that a man who's visibly confused wearing ski gear is getting a haircut in here? And so it's just a totally strange mystery that Danny, to this day, and anybody that knows Danny and his friends, the investigators, everybody, no one knows how he got there. How does a guy without a car, without any money, wearing ski gear, go from New York to Sacramento, California,
for real,
somehow get a haircut and buy a new phone, and then just suddenly come to and be like, oh, that's right, I'm Danny, and I'm gonna call my wife and let her know where I am now. Like, it was just crazy.
That's insane.
So this last story was documented in the official American Ethnology Report from 1897, 1898. Although the story is, you know, well documented in this report, the location is unclear. People have speculated that it's either Ireland, Scotland, or Wales. So just take this with a grain of salt that the location is not known. It's an older story, but it was officially documented in an official report. In 1898, a 12-year-old boy was playing at this river that ran near his house. He was out in the forest, he was playing to this river, and he had a bow and arrow, and he was practicing shooting his bow and arrow. And after a little while, he got bored of his bow and arrow, and he went to the stream itself, and he started to build a little dam in the river to try to catch some fish. And as he's building this thing up, he's down on his knees building up this little dam in the river, he notices someone is walking down the river towards him. And he looks up, and he would describe this person as looking normal, a normal-looking stranger. It's a gentleman who shows up. He's wearing a nice suit. He walks over to Wofford, and he apparently just came out of the woods. And he says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And the boy, you know, he's like, "Oh."
First of all, anybody wearing a suit in the woods walking up a river is a demon, okay? A goddamn demon. Probably the devil, okay? Let's get that straight, because there ain't no way you gonna be in the woods with just a suit looking all spiffy like you about to just go, you know, buy some car insurance. Fuck out of here.
I'm making this fish trap. And he's like, "Man, that looks like a lot of work. Like, you know, you should take a break." And the boy's like, "Yeah, I guess I could take a break." And the gentleman just says, "Well, if you want, you know, while you're taking this break, you can come to my house just up past the bend here. My family's there. You can have a meal with us, and then you can come back and you can finish your fish trap." And so, you know, this is a different time. This is the late 1800s, and I'm not suggesting that at the time it was totally cool to go with strangers into weird houses in the forest, but the boy felt compelled to say yes. He didn't want to be rude, and maybe his fear of strangers is less extreme than it is, you know, for us today in 2020. And so he agrees to go with the man. They make their way up past the river into the forest a little bit, and they come up to this cabin. Now, the boy played in the woods here, and he had never seen this house before. But he's not too concerned, because as soon as he gets to the house, this cabin in the woods, He sees that the lights are on and he hears kids playing inside.
I don't care.
A close family friend of his family's is sitting on the porch talking to one of the other apparently family members of the stranger. And so the boy's put at ease and he says hi to the family friend, and the family friend, waves back. The boy goes inside and he sees that this family has a couple of kids roughly his age. They're playing, goofing around. They have dinner, this wonderful meal. And the boy, Wofford, is like, man, this is so great. And after the meal, he lays down and falls asleep. He kind of loses track of time. The boy falls asleep at this cabin. And so he wakes up early the next morning and he feels horrible because he didn't mean to fall asleep and he didn't tell anyone from his family where he was going. And he's thinking, man, they're going to be so worried about me. And so as he's getting up to leave, the stranger is already awake, the one that had met him down by the river and called him up to the house. And the boy says, hey, can you walk me down back to the river? And the stranger's like, I can take you part of the way down, sure. So the two of them, they're having small talk, and the boy's thanking the man for his generosity. And so as they're walking, they're passing by an orchard on one side and a cornfield on the other. And it's this beautiful morning, the sun's just coming up, and the boy remembers thinking how beautiful the setting was. But he also was thinking, like, I don't even know where I am right now. And I'm assuming he's walking me back to where I live. But this doesn't look familiar at all. And the stranger stops. They get to almost a junction right at the end of the orchard and of the cornfield. And the stranger tells the boy, Wofford, he says, hey, just go straight. You're going to turn down this way, turn back, and you'll be at the river again where we met. And the boy thanks the stranger, and the stranger turns and starts walking back towards his cabin and says, hey, good luck, see ya. And the boy starts following the man's directions. And Wofford, as he's walking, following the stranger's directions, he's suddenly curious and turns around to look back at this strange person who had brought him up to the house and then now brought him back. And he's stunned because suddenly the orchard and the cornfield are not there. There is no orchard or cornfield.
Huh?
It's just deep, dark forest. And he's like, what's going on? He turns back and there's a search party, or it looks like a search party, running up to him. Part of the search party is the family friend that he had seen at the house. And the boy's like looking at these people running towards him, like they're running to him. And he recognizes the family friend and he can tell they're like urgently looking for him. And he felt bad because he knows he slept over through the night. So he's like, hey, I'm here. And they're like, where have you been? And the boy turns to the family friend and he's like, didn't you tell them I was with you? And the family friend is like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, the house with the family. We ate dinner together last night. And the guy, the family friend, is like, I've been looking for you for the past several days. I've been with your family looking for you. You've been gone for 3 days. And the boy is like, what? And as he's describing the kind of general vicinity of where this cabin was, he's kind of pointing back up towards where it was and describing it from where the river was. The family says to him that since you've been missing, we've heard rhythmic drumming non-stop coming from the section of the forest that you just described. We could never pinpoint where it was coming from. And now that you just showed up, the drumming has stopped. And so the kid's terrified, but there's no answers. Pretty creepy. So 3 very strange stories that luckily all of them ended with the person being found again. But it doesn't change the fact that the mystery remains. Where did they go? It's like they left the earth for a couple of days, or in Stephen Kubaki's case, for over a year, and then came back. It was like a glitch in the matrix or something. And so I would love to hear in the comments what you think can possibly explain how these people are disappearing without a trace and then reappearing days, weeks, months, years later, not having any idea how they got there or what had happened to them. How can we possibly reconcile that? And if you like this video and you want to see more videos,
yo, man, that one was creepy. That last one was really, really creepy, bro. With the drumming and that one was creepy. I'm telling you, man, Bigfoot out here, Bigfoot, the aliens, Casper, demons, avatars, all of them, man. They all out here just plucking people and just putting them somewhere else, man. That's crazy. That's really crazy. Man, oh man, those were creepy, man. Those were super intense. I definitely like these though, man. I definitely like this Missing 411 series. They're very interesting. And I mean, he's just really good at just telling stories, man. He's just so good at telling stories. We're about to end the live here. Shout out to everybody that donated. Chifa, hey man, you said I'm the GOAT. Thank you, man. That means a lot. Thank you for the donation. It means so much. You guys, you know, don't have to donate, but it's always much appreciated, man. I love you guys, man. I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you guys for just vibing with me, and thank you guys for commenting, sharing, and subscribing, man. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Run it back.
She just wanna shake some ass, stop frontin'. Baby, please show me something. Popping bottles in this bitch, 100 models in this bitch. We gon' party like we won the fucking lotto in this bitch. Living reckless, yeah, we know your crew can't hang. We in the section, throwing up them hundreds like it's change. Popping bottles in this bitch, 100 models in this bitch. We gon' party like we won the fucking lotto in this bitch. Living reckless, yeah, we know your crew can't hang. We in the section, throwing up them hundreds like it's change. SIMBA, back at it, I'm down in the fifth. I bought the whole shit, making moves, I'm out of the trench. Got out of LA, West Coast where I represent. I never thought that it could happen like the way that it did. I got more problems, lot of money in the bank, we going full throttle. Gotta get